A title does not create leadership. A title reveals it. I hope you caught that. A title gives volume to what was already true. Ready to grow with resilience, clarity, and confidence in leadership, career, and faith? Welcome to The Next Move. I'm Orvin, Kimbrough, CEO, author, and founder of The Thriver's Path. I went from foster care to the CEO seat, and here's what I learned. Transformation doesn't start with a title. It starts with your next move. How you reframe your thinking, reclaim your agency, and rename what's possible. If you're done circling and ready to step forward, you're in the right place. Let's make your next move your best move. Welcome back to The Next Move, the podcast where we explore faith, leadership, and personal growth to help you take your next step with purpose and confidence. Folks, I'm your host, Orvin Kimbrough. Today, we're talking about a question many emerging and sometimes established leaders wrestle with, especially when they know there is more in them than their current role allows people to see. How do I lead without a title? How do I lead without a title? And I want you to sit with that for a moment, because that question is not just about ambition. It's about identity. It's about confidence. It's about frustration. It's about knowing you have something to offer, but not always being invited into the room where decisions are made. It's about seeing gaps, but not having formal authority to close them. It's about carrying ideas, carrying insight, discernment, and capacity before anybody officially recognizes it. And if you have ever been in that place, you know it can be painful. You can feel overlooked. You can feel underestimated. You can feel like your gift is sitting in the hallway while the meeting is happening behind closed doors. But here is what I have learned over time. Folks, leadership does not begin when someone gives you permission. Leadership begins when you accept responsibility. Did you catch that? Leadership does not begin when someone gives you permission. It begins when you accept responsibility. And that is important, because many people are waiting on a title to become who they already are. Ooh, that was so good. They are waiting on a promotion to bring clarity, but waiting on authority to take initiative, waiting on recognition to show up fully, waiting on someone else to validate what God may have already placed inside of them. Is this you? But Proverbs 18:16 says, a gift opens the way and ushers the giver into the presence of the great. That verse has always spoken to me, because it does not say a title opens the way. It does not say a position opens the way. It does not say an announcement, an office, a credential, or an organizational chart opens the way. It says what? It says a gift opens the way. The gift comes first. The room comes later. The stewardship comes first. The recognition comes later. The faithfulness comes first. The platform comes later. And that's hard, because most of us, well, we want the room before we have fully stewarded the gift. But often God develops us in places where people don't yet see us clearly. He forms our character in rooms where we are not in charge. He teaches us patience before prominence. He teaches us service before visibility. He teaches us emotional discipline before influence expands. Because if your gift gets you in the room before your character can keep you there, the room can become heavier than you are prepared to carry. That was so good. I know something about being unseen. I know what it feels like to have potential that people don't yet recognize. I know what it feels like to carry a story that others might underestimate. Growing up in foster care, losing my mother at a young age, navigating trauma, learning how to survive systems that were not always designed to see the whole child, I didn't start life with a title. I didn't start with power. I didn't start with access, but I did have something forming inside me. I had something forming on the inside of me. I had imagination. I had resilience. I had hunger. I had faith, even when I didn't always have the language for it. Hmm. I had a deep desire to understand people, to understand systems. I had a deep desire to understand why some folks get stuck and why some folks get lifted. And over time, I came to understand that leadership was not something I had to wait to become. It was something I had to practice right where I was. Before I led organizations, I had to learn how to lead myself. Before I had formal authority, I had to learn how to manage my emotions, honor my commitments, ask better questions, and bring value without needing applause. That is where a title less leadership begins. Title less leadership begins. It begins with what? Self leadership. Because if you can't lead yourself when nobody is watching, a title will only expose what has not been developed. Now, let me offer you just a few things I have learned. The first is this: leaders take initiative without waiting to be invited. There are people who only move, as you know, there are people who only move when someone gives them a formal assignment. And then there are people who see what needs to be done and they begin to add value, not recklessly, not arrogantly, not trying to take over, but with humility and clarity. They ask, where is the gap? Where is the confusion? Where is the burden? Where can I strengthen the work? That kind of initiative gets noticed over time. Not always immediately, not always by the person you expect, but it gets noticed because responsibility has a way of revealing readiness. Ooh, that was so good. You may not have the authority to change every decision, but you can change the energy you bring into the room. You can change the quality of your preparation. You can change the way you communicate. You can change whether people experience you as someone who creates more clarity or more confusion. You can change. You can change whether you are a person who drains momentum or builds it. The second thing I have learned is this: people follow clarity before they follow hierarchy. A title may tell people who they are supposed to report to, but clarity tells people who they can trust. And that matters because in real life, people don't simply follow positions. They follow steadiness. They follow wisdom. They follow emotional maturity. They follow people who help them make sense of complexity. They follow people who can name what is happening without making everyone more anxious. In my leadership journey, I have watched people with very little formal authority shape an entire room because they did what? They brought clarity. They asked the question no one else was asking. They summarized the issue in a way people could understand. They connected the dots. They helped others see the next move. My friend, that is leadership. And you don't need a title to do that. The third thing I have learned is this: authority amplifies what influence has already initiated. By the time someone gives you the title, the question is not whether you suddenly become a leader. The question is whether your leadership has already been forming in private. A title does not create leadership. A title reveals it. Hope you caught that. A title gives volume to what was already true. That's why some people get promoted and struggle. They received authority before they developed influence, but others step into leadership and people say, wow, that makes sense. Why? Why? Because they were already leading. They were already trusted. They were already carrying responsibility. They were already shaping culture. They were already making people better. The title simply caught up with the truth. The fourth thing is this: you lead by presence before you lead by expertise. People feel you before they follow you. They feel whether you are anxious or grounded. They feel whether you are trying to prove yourself or trying to serve the mission. They feel whether you are competing for attention, or contributing to purpose. They feel whether you are safe. Presence matter, especially when you don't have the title. Because when you lack formal authority, your presence becomes part of your credibility. How you listen matters. How you respond under pressure, well, it matters. How you handle being overlooked, folks, it matters. How you disagree, it matters. How you support others matters. How you carry yourself when the room does not yet recognize your value matters. That is where the deeper work began. This is why the thriver's path is so important to me, because many people think the next move is external. It's a new rule, a new title, a new opportunity, a new platform. And sometimes it is, but often the next move starts inside. You have to reframe what leadership really is. You have to stop seeing leadership as permission and start seeing it as stewardship. You have to reclaim your agency. You may not control the org chart. Don't miss this. You may not control the org chart, but you do control your preparation. You do control your presence. You do control your attitude. You control your effort, your learning, and your willingness to add value. And you have to rename what is possible. You are not powerless because you don't have a title. You are being formed. You are being strengthened. You are being prepared. You are learning how to lead before the spotlight finds you. That's the reframe. Leadership is not granted. Leadership is revealed. Your voice is valid before the organization validates it. Your gift has value before someone gives it a label. Your contribution matters before it comes with a promotion. So maybe you are not leading without a title. Maybe you are leading before the title. And maybe this season is not punishment. Maybe it's preparation. Maybe this is the season where God is teaching you how to carry influence with humility, how to serve without needing to be seen, how to speak with wisdom, not insecurity, how to build trust before you build authority, how to become the kind of person who can handle the room your gift is making space for. Because your gift may open the way, but your character, my friend, your character, my brother, your character, my sister, will determine how you stand once you get there. So here's the question I want you to sit with. Where is your leadership already showing up, even though the title has not caught up yet? Not where you are being overlooked, not who failed to recognize you, not why have they not promoted you yet? Those questions may be real questions, but they may not be the most productive place to begin. Start here. Where am I already being trusted? Where am I already bringing clarity? Where am I already strengthening the work? Where am I already helping people rise? Where am I already showing signs of readiness? This is where your next move begins. And here's the invitation. This week, do one thing. Do one thing that strengthens the mission without needing credit. Ask one better question. Bring clarity to one conversation. Encourage one person who is struggling. Close one gap that no one assigned to you. Ooh, that's so good. Prepare like your gift matters, because it does. Your gift matters. Your presence matters. Your leadership, it matters, even before the title. So keep showing up. Keep serving with excellence. Keep doing the inner work. Keep letting God shape the leader in you before the room fully recognizes what is there. And trust this. Don't miss this. What God has placed in you can make room for you, But the deepest work is becoming whole enough, becoming grounded enough and faithful enough to steward the room when the door opens. Until next time, keep growing from the inside out, keep leading with humility and clarity, and keep taking your next move. Thanks for spending time with me on The Next Move. I hope today's reflection helped you see your situation differently and reminded you that you're not stuck, you're being strengthened. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who's standing at the edge of their next move. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's ahead. For deeper reflections, tools, and guided pathways for growth, visit orvinkimbrough.com and explore the Thriver's Path. Until next time, remember, every small step taken with intention moves you closer to the life and leadership you're becoming. Let's keep moving forward together.